The snow fell in heavy sheets, blanketing the quiet street in a hush that felt heavier than silence. Mara leaned against the counter of her tiny diner, the neon sign flickering outside, casting a faint red glow across the empty booths. The clock ticked past midnight. Another night, another handful of coins in the tip jar, barely enough to keep the lights on. Her fingers traced the worn edge of a photograph tucked in her apron. Her son, Caleb, smiling at his 5th birthday, before the hospital visits, before the bills that never stopped coming. At 7, he was still fighting, his small body braver than hers felt. Mara's chest ached. She was running out of ways to keep him safe. The diner was her lifeline, inherited from her mother, but it was bleeding money. The regulars had dwindled, the neighborhood had changed, and the chain restaurants down the road had stolen what little business remained. Mara kept it open anyway, pouring coffee for truckers and loaners because closing it would mean admitting defeat. She glanced at the window, where snow piled against the glass, and whispered a prayer she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Caleb deserved better. She had to keep going. For him. The bell above the door jingled, snapping her from her thoughts. A man stumbled in, his coat dusted with snow, his face shadowed under a hood. He was young, maybe 30, with a wiry frame and eyes that darted nervously. He slid into a booth without a word, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Mara grabbed the coffee pot, her instinct to serve overriding her unease. "Rough night?" she asked, pouring him a cup. He nodded, barely meeting her eyes. "Just passing through." Something about him felt off, too tense, too quiet. But Mara had seen plenty of lost souls in her diner. She slid a menu across the table. "On the house if you're hungry. Nobody leaves here empty." He hesitated, then muttered a thanks, ordering a burger. As she turned toward the kitchen, her gaze caught on something outside. A faint glow in the alley across the street, flickering like a candle in the storm. Her heart skipped. That alley was dark, always had been. No one went there, especially not in a blizzard. She shook it off, blaming fatigue, and started the grill. But when she glanced again, the light was still there, steady now, beckoning. The man in the booth was staring at it too, his coffee untouched, his jaw tight. Mara's gut twisted, something was wrong. She set the spatula down, wiped her hands, and stepped outside, the cold biting her skin. The man followed, unasked, his boots crunching behind her. In the alley, half buried in snow, was a cardboard box, the kind movers used, sealed with duct tape. The glow came from a tiny hole where a faint warm light spilled out. Mara knelt, her breath catching as she heard it, a soft, unmistakable whimper. She tore at the tape, her fingers numb, and pulled back the flaps. Inside, curled in a blanket, was a baby, no older than a year, her cheeks pink from the cold, her tiny hands clutching a glowing keychain shaped like a star. A note was pinned to the blanket, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "Please, I can't." Mara's vision blurred with tears. She lifted the baby, cradling her close, the warmth of the tiny body grounding her shock. The man from the diner stood frozen, his face pale, his eyes wide with something like guilt. "You know something about this?" Mara asked, her voice sharp but trembling. He swallowed, looking away. I saw her mother. Earlier tonight. She was young, scared. Said she couldn't do it anymore. I told her to wait, that I'd get help, but she ran. I came back to check, but..." His voice broke. "I didn't know what to do." Mara's anger flared, then softened. He wasn't the villain here, just another person caught in a moment too big for him. She looked down at the baby, who stirred, her eyes blinking up at Mara with quiet trust. "We can't leave her," Mara said, more to herself than to him. "Not like this." The man nodded, his shoulders sagging. "Name's Eli. he said, quietly. "I'll help. Whatever you need." That night, Mara didn't sleep. She brought the baby to the diner's back room, where she kept a cot for late shifts. Eli stayed too, running to the 24-hour pharmacy for formula and diapers, his nervous energy replaced by a quiet determination. Caleb, woken by the commotion, peered at the baby with wide eyes, his oxygen tube trailing behind him. "Is she ours now?" he asked, his voice small but hopeful. Mara's heart cracked. "For tonight she's safe," she said, brushing his hair. "That's what matters." The next morning, the diner felt different. The snow had stopped and sunlight streamed through the windows, warming the chipped linoleum. Eli swept the floor without being asked, his hands steadier now. The baby, whom Mara had started calling Stella after a star, slept in a makeshift crib of blankets. A social worker was coming, but Mara already knew she'd fight to keep Stella safe, maybe even foster her. She'd called her lawyer friend, who promised to help pro bono. Eli didn't leave. Over the next weeks, he became a fixture, fixing the diner's leaky sink, repainting the walls, even rigging a new neon sign that glowed brighter than the old one. He wasn't just helping, he was healing too. One night, as they scrubbed dishes, side by side, he spoke softly. "I was that kid once, left behind. Nobody stopped for me. When I saw her mother, I froze. Thought I'd fail again." He paused, his hands still in the soapy water. "You didn't hesitate. You just acted." Mara looked at him, seeing the weight he carried. "You stopped this time," she said. "That's enough." Caleb loved Stella, reading her picture books despite his cough, his face brighter than it had been in months. The diner started to change too. Word spread about the baby in the alley, about Mara's open door. Regulars returned, bringing friends. A local news crew did a story, and soon strangers left donations. Toys, clothes, even cash for Caleb's medical bills. The diner wasn't just surviving, it was alive again. 6 months later, Mara stood behind the counter, the diner bustling with laughter and clinking plates. Stella, now officially in Mara's foster care, babbled in a high chair, her star-shaped keychain dangling nearby. Caleb, stronger after a new treatment, helped Eli hang a handmade sign, "The light in the window." Eli had stayed, taking a job at the diner, his once guarded eyes now warm with purpose. He wasn't family, not exactly, but he belonged. That evening, as the last customers left, Mara sat with Caleb and Stella, Eli nearby, wiping down tables. The neon sign glowed outside, a beacon in the dark. They didn't talk much, just sat together in the quiet. Mara realized she hadn't prayed in months, not because she'd lost faith, but because she'd found it in the people around her.